Welcome back to the Build Different podcast. Fellas, it is March and probably my favorite month, not going to lie. You guys know I love me some sports. I love me some Contech. I love hanging out with you guys. This is going to be a great time. I've been looking forward to this, burning some midnight oil of making this show, this specific episode happen. Fellas, I've just went on a tear. Brian, I know you know what's cooking on this one, but it's going to be a good time, brother.
This has definitely been the most interesting pre-show meetings we've had so far, and I'm excited for this. But I think when you give Grant actual like full carte blanche, you never really know what's going to happen.
I have some surprises up my sleeve, and Jarvis, welcome into what is this, your third episode, and we are going full send on this. So I will say, if there's graphics and things that go wrong, I will take full blame. But this is going to be fun, fellas.
It's gonna be a good time. Excited.
I have
fun to
Jarvis
see the inside
speechless.
of Grant's mind.
This is gonna be great. So, what do we got cooking, fellas? We have a really fun episode slated for us today. Let me get our talking points out here because it is March, and so that means it's time for some March Madness showdown. Everyone loves a good bracket. You guys a fan of March? I got my Iowa State gear on. I got to rep my team, number 3 seed. They play tonight, and yeah, rooting them on. You guys big March Madness fans or not really? Wow.
You know my take on
complete silence, and we'll end this episode right now. So there we go.
Yeah, I haven't been a March Madness guy since Jimmer Fredette lost it for BYU.
There it is. Now we're bringing back some fun. Guys, I gotta need to hype us up here. I'm just gonna go straight into Jarvis, what you sent me, because if this doesn't get us hyped, I don't know what will here.
Both of us could ever imagine. It's me on keys and Dave singing. Can you believe this is our job?
I can't believe this is actually our job. SNL skit, Roundball Rock, if you haven't seen it.
All right, fire away. All right, ready to do this?
Yes, I am.
All right, 2, 3, 4.
Basketball, gimme the ball because I'm gonna dunk it!
All right, fellas. If that doesn't bring us some energy here, I have completely lost the show. But, we're going to get us going. Thanks for sending that, Jarvis. Got me going for this one. All right, so what are we going to do? Let's talk about this. Fellas, I'm going to need some energy here. I know it's early, but we got to get going. So the bracket. What are we going to do here? I was trying to think of kind of a fun idea, and we're going to talk about the ultimate project. We are going to break down some key discussions and pit topics against each other, 4 different regions, a lot of different topics. We'll get in and show you the bracket here in a little bit, but the showdown is going to be, we got 3 of us, and I think what we're going to do is have some tiebreakers here of ideas of how we're going to pick some of these topics to move on. I'll talk about the categories, regions, all that stuff. I'm clearly more excited than you guys are, and then eventually these will lead to the ideal project, and Brian, hopefully the final 4. We're not going to kind of pit the final 4s again, or the final 4 against each other, but really those are going to come up with the ideal project. And so I know that's super confusing, but before we get into the bracket, if you have not met our hosts yet, and if you are new to the show, I want to bring in a little graphic here. And this graphic is going to be pretty sweet because what I want to do is to introduce Mr. Brian Vizaretta here on this graphic. Let's see if I can get it to pop up, fellas. Here we go. There he is, a little player spotlight. Job sites won, minutes flown, miles walked. I mean, Brian, I was a labor of love making this into the midnight hour here. Just a couple points about you, known for your cunning personality. I think that's very true. So make some viral videos. I just want people to know the contestants that are going, that are pitting against each other here. I just think this is going to be a great time. And so, Jarvis, you are not without being picked on here. We're also going to do your spotlight.
I need that Jarvis rookie card, please.
Whoa. Okay. Hey, do you want to comment on any of these, Brian? I mean, I think these bullet points are pretty accurate.
No. That's what I'm saying. I want to collect. I want to collect these. Like, we need these for everybody.
Yeah, I don't know if I can print them, mail them to you, but maybe we make one for Adam just because he's not on the show anymore, and we can send him his signed autograph card. All right, Mr. Jarvis, let's get you in here. Let's bring in your player card. I thought this was just very, very perfect here. You don't have a goatee in this picture, but boy, I think you're looking much more wise now with your goatee. Extensive background. You've have a ton of good field perspective here, and I thought these little players cards were here to make a point. So Brian, I see you laughing over there, buddy, but these are the real deal.
Oh yeah, this is awesome. This is great. We need more of that.
Yeah, I've been accused of catfishing multiple times since coming here to Drone Deploy because of that photo. So, yeah.
Hey, I mean, if you are just listening to this, I very much recommend you tune in and watch this episode because there's a lot of graphical things that you'll be able to see pop up here. But Brian, I mean, look at this mugshot, man. This is money. I feel like these player cards, I went to the depths of making these templates and just found them to be pretty awesome. So that is your contestants and who will be pitting these brackets against each other today. But let's get into it, fellas. I want to release the brackets. It was Selection Sunday this past Sunday, and we're going to get into what these brackets look like. And so what I'm going to do is pull up a screen and kind of walk through these 4 different categories. We're going to call them regions in this example of execution tech, data and intelligence, people and process, and then ROI and business impact. So those are our 4 regions, fellas. There's 8 topics in each region. And then what we're going to do is basically get down to 1 topic in each of these, and we're going to see how that fits in the overall narrative of the ideal project. So what I have is like 3 or 4 questions per each of these regions, and that's what we're going to use to help advance these topics through the bracket. If this is confusing and we've lost you, welcome back. It's going to be a great time, and it's going to be really interesting to kind of pit some of these things against each other. But for example, an execution tech region, which tools actually help people hit a schedule? What tools replace manual effort or just monitor it? Again, these are kind of the questions that we're sifting through. And so really what we wanted to do here is kind of pit these things against each other and kind of see how these are all going to fit. Let's move down into data and intelligence, the questions that we'll kind of be using to evaluate it. What tools make people stop guessing and start acting? A very reasonable question that we're going to ask. What insight would you miss the most if disappeared tomorrow? I think that's a very interesting question on data and intelligence. And what gives project teams the unfair advantage over competitors? I think kind of a spicy topic there of sorts. And so that's the data and intelligence region. Once we move down into people and process, one that I know Brian will love here. What makes tech adoption actually stick? That's a great question to evaluate these topics through this region. What kills or builds momentum? That's going to be a helpful evaluation as we kind of move it through the bracket. And then which role is most underrated in driving adoption? So that's what we're going to do here on the people and process, and rounding out the last region of ROI and business impact. I like this question. If the CFO is listening, what tools do you pitch? And then what tech would survive a budget cut? Also a helpful question. And then what actually helps you win bids or finish jobs faster? So hopefully that gives a little bit of context here into these 4 different brackets that we have. And don't you worry, we're going to have some tiebreakers if we land on kind of the same thing within these. But fellas, what do you think about these categories? I will disclaimer this, all built within ChatGPT. I have absolutely zero creative bones in my body other than making cool player cards. But Brian, what do you think about these regions and categories?
I'm fired up. I think it's got a good mix of different categories. I think very commonly people just think of it all as Contech, but there really is so many different departments that get involved. So I'm ready for this.
Yeah, Jarvis, do we miss any? Is there any regions that maybe didn't make this list that, again, we could build out a nice 68 team bracket if we wanted to, but I figured, hey, we only got a few minutes on today's episode. Any regions or brackets that we missed that you feel like could be represented here?
No, I think this is a good kind of overall look at construction and how we can innovate things. It's not really getting super deep of specific software types or hardware types, so I like it.
The single prompt into ChatGPT made this episode topic explode, but it's not truly March, fellas, until we really get the... Oh yeah, got to get that jingle going. My dream is to be Jim Nance, by the way, in case you guys didn't know. Just sitting courtside, commentating on games. But are you guys ready to get into this? Should we move on down the list here and move into our topic 2 here? So, all right, what we're going to do is, this isn't the takeaways. This is actually going to be the section where we get into the showdown, and that's what we're going to be rocking here. So let me move down into topic 2 here and get into our first region. First region, fellas. Execution tech. So we got 8 different topics here to make up this bracket. And we're going to go, no particular seedings here. Just wanted to kind of framework this out of saying, hey, We just felt like these were topics that I think could be kind of pitted each other. So what we're going to do is give you guys each about a minute. And if you hear the little triangle, that's going to be your timer to be up on your topic. So we're going to go down each of these, and I'll list them out in case you are just listening to us, and we'll kind of work our way through this bracket, go through the next bracket, eventually get to our final four, and we're going to hammer it out, fellas. How do you feel about that?
Ready for it.
Okay. All right. So 1 seed versus 2 seed. Again, this isn't kind of 1 versus 8. We're just going bracket style across the board. So drones versus laser scanning, 360 cameras versus fixed cameras, robotic layout versus workforce sensors. That's going to be an interesting discussion. And then tablets versus mobile phones. So again, execution tech. This is what we're kind of thinking in what helps a job actually go and execute on some of these tech tools. So Jarvis, I'm going to start with you. This is a tough one. Drones and laser scanning. How do you pit these two against each other? I'm going to put a minute on the clock, and the floor is yours to debate your winner.
Yeah, I think just kind of baseline, drones are like a widely adoptable tool for construction projects. Most construction jobs, starting up, ground up construction, there's nothing really there to laser scan for the majority of projects. As you get into retrofits and renovations or additions, then laser scanning plays a big part and can have a huge impact. But to me, the cost barrier, you look at it from a cost perspective, drones beat out laser scanning. You look at it from just the ease of adoptability and the necessary tools and stuff that you have to have. Drones are kind of a wireframe version of laser scanning in the level of detail they can pick up. It's something that, a project engineer, kid fresh out of college, kid out of high school, anybody, a helper can pick up a drone, get their Part 107 in the US, whatever regulation they need to get. But laser scanning, it takes, a beefy computer, a lot of know-how in, the CAD softwares and the modeling softwares to be able to develop and build. So to me, just drones blanket just cover a lot more stuff and assist in a lot more jobs. So drones gets a win for me.
All right, Brian, what's your take?
This is a tough one for me, but I'm going to have to agree with Jarvis on the drones, mostly not because of what laser scanning is capable of, right? I mean, the RTC 360 has come such a long way from your typical P series on just in regards to Leica, but it has more to do with the processes that are put in place. So typically when people are going through, they're setting up model coordinates, there's really is no congruent way that all companies are kind of doing this. So a lot of companies I see just laser scan for the sake of it. They're not necessarily tying into any survey coordinates, and then they're not automatically dropping in or getting used to the entire coordination process. Most of the time they use the scan to build a perfect version of a model, and then they end up turning the scan off and only going with the model. So I'm going to say drones is probably the data that I would say gets used or gets touched the most as the end result.
All right. Well, if that's 2-0, I don't have the tiebreaker here. If you guys just keep agreeing, I'm not going to get in this conversation here. But if I were to vote, again, one of the questions that we put on this region was, what would you start a department with? And I definitely think drones could fit that bill. Definitely touch all parts of the life cycle. Very, very high ROI per dollar spend, not discrediting anything on the laser scanning side, but definitely think drones advance here into the next spot. All right, so let's move down. The next matchup is 360 cameras and fixed cameras. Fellas, Brian, I'll start with you on this one and give you your stage to make your argument.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's tough because you think about, you have a give and take on just like vantage points. So fixed cameras obviously on the outside, but it doesn't require any labor. I think I'm pretty torn on this, but I'd say 360 cameras end up being able to get used from everything from precon all the way through the end of the project. When the building closes up, where a drone can't see anything as well, that's where I think 360 cameras are going to win on this one personally. But I'd say depends on who you're asking. Maybe for the ownership team, field cameras is the most important thing, just being able to show updates, things like that. So I'm gonna stick with 360 cameras on this one.
All right, Jarvis, what do you got?
You're not going to find a tiebreaker on this one either, Grant, because I kind of agree with Brian. Not kind of, I wholeheartedly agree with Brian. To me, fixed cameras do play a role, like the ability just to set it, forget it. Nobody has to go out and do collections. That makes it easy on the project team. They're not spending their time doing collections. But the second you close in the building, fixed cameras going to kind of go away. Just having that single point of view doesn't produce anything for 3D modeling, doesn't produce anything for cut fill. You can't really do top-down overlays. 360 cameras, with things that we're doing with 2D mapping, 3D mobile mapping, just in general, 360 cameras, the cost of them, there's no need for subscription. You can just go out there and take regular photos if you want, put them into a folder structure, and it's just a holistic view. So like they're a Swiss Army knife, and they're really, really cheap. So 360 cameras all day in my book.
Man, fellas, I'm going to keep giving you the floor here. I would agree. I think what's hard about this bracket, as I'm kind of realizing, we didn't even preface and prep on this part, but you are picking one over the other. That's not to discredit anything of the other side of it, but I think you guys both bring up really good points. Although I will say, fixed cameras have come a long way with some model overlays from those perspectives. I don't know if you guys have seen some of that, of being able to kind of overlay what it should look like from that perspective from a fixed camera. But 2 sensors to me beat out 1 sensor, and the ability to walk around with them. Tough win, but I think 360 cameras, that's going to be a hard semifinal round here. But moving down into the next topic, robotic layout and workforce sensors. This is going to be interesting. Jarvis, I'll start with you, of kind of moving down the way here. Which one are you invested in? Which one are you going to start your tech stack with?
And it's almost a toss up for me, but being a field engineer layout guy at DPR, robotic layout is a pretty near and dear topic to my heart, but there are limitations to it. Still having to place the robot and set it, on its location. It does take a lot of human interaction to have that kind of accurate layout and the robotic aspect to it. So it does remove a portion of the human element, but there's still currently a need for human interaction. But I do love kind of the background with the robotic layout stuff. Workforce sensors, to me, just the wide variety that you get. You can do temperature sensors, you can do material sensors, you can do people, like locations, you can do controlled access zones. So to me, just the wide range of workforce sensors kind of makes me want to lean that way. But at the same time, like the second you get closed into a building, some of those GPS kind of dependent sensors kind of fall out, because you get closed in, you get steel structure. They just don't provide like a really pinpoint accurate stuff. And Wi-Fi on job sites isn't super, super prevalent and rolled out on every project. It's still kind of a cost barrier for a lot. So I don't know. I kind of want to give this one a push, but I think I'll give it the edge out for workforce sensors just because of the variety.
Wow. Okay. Brian, what do you
switch to last second?
I was going to say that was the last second switch. Didn't know where you were landing. What do you got?
I'm gonna just talk about like the history of workforce sensors there, right? So we've seen Triax. I don't know where they're at now, but I remember there's a ton of issue with tracking like the physical workforce, right? And then you have your concrete sensors where it would give you like the strength and when it was cured, and that itself was another set of challenges of like, all right, how accurate is it, and how much are we? We're already doing slump tests, et cetera. Like, right, is how much more of an efficiency are we truly gaining? But I'm going to say robotic layout because not necessarily of what it's doing per se, right? Like it's doing layout, it's doing something that we already do, but I believe it's bringing up a lot of conversations right now of, when is it owned? How is the process? Like, how can the process be improved? So I think robotic layout is going to disrupt more, revolutionize that area more than I think sensors will in the near term. I think as sensors start adapting to construction and not, being used for what they typically are, these beautiful IoT perfect environments with air conditioning, et cetera, maybe that'll make a comeback for me. But I'm going to go with robotic layout.
Holy cow, fellas. Didn't think I was going to be the deciding vote here. And Jarvis definitely pulled a crossover on me here of what he was going to go with. But yeah, I think you guys both made some pretty solid arguments. Brian, I think what I'm hearing from you is like the short term, I'm investing in robotic. Jarvis, maybe the long term and data side of it into workforce sensors. I actually, I'm going to land with you, Jarvis. I think that the applicability and kind of diversity of data that you can get from sensors is going to be super fascinating. I very much agree with you, Brian, that there's some kind of networking challenges and just some kind of hurdles to get over. But I think from a long-term perspective, guys, we haven't even talked about tools like Genda, on here that long. They're a great tool that has been out there, especially on the kind of workforce sensor side of it. But I'm going to be the decider vote here. I'm going to go workforce sensors. I love some robotic layout. I think it's incredibly important, the things that you can provide to it, and more data that's getting down in the layout process. But I'm gonna go workforce sensors. So strange. This is my first deciding vote on here, but I think it is. So okay, Last one in the quarterfinal round, tablets and mobile phones. Feels like we're going back to the early 2000s of this conversation. But Brian, which one are you equipping your teams with? Kind of feels like a hard choice between the two, but very curious to hear your guys' opinions between these.
Yeah, I mean, do I still get to keep a flip phone?
That's a great question. Didn't have that in my bingo card of selection. Yes, I would say let's work under the premise that some sort of mobile communication would be right. Maybe the best way to kind of purview these is like, would you rather your field teams working on tablets or mobile phones to consume information as maybe kind of a framework here? So I don't know if that's revealing kind of the answer to the two, but yeah, let's start.
As somebody who's helped different team members change their text on their phone to size 150 font, I'm going to go with tablet on this one, just because the versatility on being able to like just review drawings on your phone sometimes is very difficult. I mean, most things you're like looking at in portrait mode, not landscape. And I think on tablets, I've also, I would say like Revisto, for example, for me has been super helpful in the field, being able to just like pull up drawings, look at cut sections, things like that. But also, like if I'm able to make phone calls somewhere else, then I can iMessage. I'm going to go with the tablets for the most part. Everything from drawings to just being able to turn it into a key, like adding a keyboard to it and be able to write an email.
Nice. All right, Jarvis, what do you got?
Agreed. Tablets all the way for me.
Wow.
Even when I had a mobile phone and a tablet, like I was reaching for the tablet to view stuff on Bluebeam or PlanGrid or whatever my mobile doc drawing, viewing app was. So to me, I kind of think mobile phones have kind of been a little bit of a detriment because you miss out on the one-to-many comms. So like I was chatting with somebody last week and they kind of said, like me calling the superintendent calling me saying, hey, can you go check this, lay down, we just got a material delivery. You miss out on just that wide net communication of, oh, hey, I'm already over there, I'll go take a look at it. But from a data ingestion, like looking at, what is going on with the construction pre-pour or anything like that, tablets for me, just because most apps are optimized for tablet size and layout.
Yeah, very much agree. Glad I wasn't the tiebreaker on this one, but yeah, tablets, kind of surprising how they haven't necessarily maybe taken off as much of your tablet in the field and kind of your laptop device in the office for field staff. I've actually heard some folks that are like fully moving away from full-on laptops for field staff, which it's another bracket, another time. All right, let's go back up to the semifinals. We're in round 2 here. Fellas, this is going to get a lot harder than I maybe thought. So drones versus 360 cameras and workforce sensors versus tablets. Jarvis, start us off on this one. This is going to be tough.
I think we're getting to a spot where, some of the capabilities and stuff with 360 cameras are kind of merging into the drone realm, things that were exclusive drone. I mean, you look at the iteration, even just here at Drone Deploy, 2D orthomosaics, we're starting to build out 2D ground maps with 360 cameras, being able to do dimensioned, looks and views in 360 cameras. So to me, as much as I hate to say it, because I've been a drone flyer since 2014, back when it was Part 333, like 360 cameras, just because of there's no airspace, there's no, we've got a heliport or anything like that going on. They're just on the ground. It's easy to do. They're cheap. I mean, they're what, 1/10 the cost of RTK drones nowadays. And we're getting to the point where we might be able to do some cool 3D modeling collections and stuff. So I'll have to give the edge to 360 cameras just from adaptability and usage.
Very curious where Brian's going to go on this one. And guys, I'm over here like nervous that I had to be the tiebreaker between y'all because very good points. And Viz, what do you got?
It's really going to depend where I am in the country or who the builder is.
Okay.
Right. If I'm doing these large scale jobs out in Texas versus these high rise buildings in New York, it's going to be a night or day answer. But I'm gonna pretend that I'm in Grant's backyard over here and dealing with these large infrastructure projects, even these data centers. I think you really can't, with a 360 camera is incredible, but you still can do in-wall photos with a phone and or some other device. And then obviously the process of automatically mapping is not necessarily what we're talking about. We're talking about the hardware itself, I'm going to assume. With the drone data, you really don't have that vantage point unless you are, contracting out a helicopter. And how often can you truly do that on some of these projects? and be able to get the data output, I think, is something that you can achieve elsewhere. I do believe when 360 cameras get to the point that we can start getting more automatic reporting from it, I would be on that side, but I'm going to go with drones.
Dang it, fellas. Did not anticipate this in the pre-show of having to split y'all. This one is tough. I think you guys both bring up, can you guys just agree with each other so I don't have to maybe be the deciding vote? This is tricky because Brian, I think you bring up a great point. Jarvis, you too, of like type of project matters, complexity, airspace. There's a lot of things. I think what I answered a little bit earlier is just kind of like the future vision of like what am I building out with my tools. And I just think for a dollar to ROI ratio of what can be gleaned from, I gotta pick drones. And man, this is such a hard one to pick because I think everything you said, Jarvis, is very true. Like some of the outputs and deliverables that can come from a 360 camera are starting to kind of mimic what drones can do. But just the sheer data collection and size of site, all parts of the life cycle, which is very interesting too. Maybe a big one that's excluded, obviously, is like some interior capture from drones, which is a whole other story to kind of camp on. But I think I'm going to go drones, which is hard because this truly to me feels like an 8-9 matchup toss-up. You can really just kind of pick either one, but I'm going to go drones and kind of see where the rest of this bracket goes. So, but again, very much agree with you, Jarvis. I think the 360 camera stuff is really starting to kind of pick up and what we can do from it. So moving down to the bottom, workforce sensors and tablets. Tricky. Brian, what do you got? And let's kind of round out the semifinal round.
I'm gonna go tablets all day on this one. I can get into it, but what is something that you cannot live without is one of the criteria. And I would say either a tablet or some sort of communication tool to pull up drawings or be able to look at the model while I'm in the field versus a sensor. Most of the sensors are created to, make a process better, right? So whether it was like slump tests or concrete sensing, great to speed something up. But I don't know if I could go back to carrier pigeon. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. Just so we're clear to tablets, we're basically just saying like iPads, right, fellas? I guess I didn't really clarify that, but is that how you're interpreting it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
Jarvis.
that's what I think of.
Okay, on to you. What do you got?
Agreed. Like nothing more to say in this one. Like I know I was the workforce sensor vote for the last one, but I can't imagine going back to a project site without being able to whip out the iPad or the tablet, whatever, and be able to look at drawings, look at RFIs, look at the submittals, double check my layout, double check, the model, any of that stuff. So tablets.
All right. Well, we are down to our final round here. Let's give a little applause for these last two. How do we pick, fellas? What are you starting your tech program with, and which one are you camping to move on to the last round? Jarvis, I'll start with you. Drones or tablets?
Tablets. Yep. iPads, tablets to me. I mean, just the democratization of data, being able to access drawings, hands down the best thing that's happened to construction in the last probably 30 years or so. Like moving from paper, having to carry around rolls and rolls of plans and wondering if you got the right, piece of paper with you to go check the RFI and submittal. Tablets all day.
Wow. From the bottom of the bracket. Brian, what do you got? Who are you going with?
I'm going to go with tablets just because now we're just talking about frequency. I'm looking at the drawings every day, if not every hour, right? I'm pulling something up at every single moment. I'm somewhere on that project, right? And then on top of that, not every project could benefit from drones. Like when you talk about the exterior renovation, some of these like 2-3 mil interior projects, these fit outs, I'm going to go with tablets on this one.
Well, thankful I'm not your deciding vote on this one. Shocking. Surprised but not surprised. We'll get to this in the end. Region 1 completed, fellas. Great job moving our way through. Tablets taking the cake. I
think that just goes to show you too, like sometimes the simplest tech will always succeed.
I want to get in the end. We'll get to this discussion is why don't more jobs have it? But we'll tease that kind of question. All right, we're going to move down into data and intelligence as this region. I don't know if we're calling this the South region here, but what tools make people stop guessing? What insight would you miss the most if disappeared tomorrow? What gives project teams some competitive advantage over their competitors? So We're going to move into data and intelligence. So what we got here is, again, another 8 bracket round here. I'll read off these matchups, and then we'll work our way through. You guys are doing great. I'm very interested. I think some surprising answers, but maybe not. I feel like the quarterfinal round with all 8 of these is pretty tricky, but they definitely rise to the top as we get moving here. So, all right, data and intelligence. This one's going to be fascinating. Building information modeling or digital twin. Haven't said the word digital twin in probably 2 or 3 years, so we'll hit on that. 2D overlays versus 3D overlays when we talk about intelligence and some data aspect of it. This one I kind of found very interesting. Dashboards or reports. What do you kind of prefer? Pushing out into some data stuff. Material tracking or productivity tracking for data. So let's start up at the top of the bracket. BIM versus digital twin. Whew, two buzzy words. I feel like we need our little air horn here to say, heard those before. All right. Okay. So Jarvis, floor is yours, guys. I just got all my sound effects in this time, and I'm finally finding ways to use them. So Jarvis, the floor is yours. Building information modeling or digital twin.
The way that I look at it, building information modeling is a forward kind of looking thing. I mean, you can have a model produced and have it affect your estimates, have it affect your logistics plans, have it affect your coordination, being able to do MEP coordination before you even start the job. To me, having a digital twin is a great thing, especially for like renovation add-ons. Having what really exists out there is a great thing, but I've got to give it to BIM just because of the applicability moving forward in a project and across every life phase of a project. Being able to see, hey, even before we touch the project, the mechanical ducting that we have isn't going to fit in the interstitial space. Just a better proactive tool in my opinion. But then you get to the owner side of things, you get to O&M, you get to the add-on renovation. Hey, we want to tack on another wing to this data hall. Digital twins are like invaluable there too, knowing what is in existence, but I'm still going to give it to BIM.
All right, Brian, what do you got?
I'm not going to get it twisted. I don't want us to get as-built model confused with digital twin. I mean,
I was very specific of why I put in digital twin, which this isn't
like
a definition show, by the way. Just want to make sure we.
So no, everything's a definition show. So here's important. This is why this is important. So when we did a project called Virtual Harvard, where we digitized the entire campus, and the concept of like, what do we name this? Is it a digital twin or is it not? And we ended up coming to the conclusion of, say I laser scan and I created a model of the room I'm currently sitting in. I have a phone sitting on the table. I pick that phone up and I move it 2 feet over. That model is no longer a digital twin if that is not represented in whatever I'm presenting that in, right? So to have that level, I would say could make more sense on the O&M side. But if we're talking strictly construction, we can barely get people to keep temp lights up in certain scenarios. Like, how are we going to keep these real-time sensors all the time? So I'm going to go with BIM because it's proven, it's working, and if you're not doing it by now, then what the hell are you doing?
All righty, straightforward enough. I will leave the 2-0 matchup there. So, all right, 2D overlays or 3D overlays. Again, fellas, just to context our what makes people stop guessing and start acting. Which insight would you miss the most of Disappear Tomorrow? A couple of those questions, but 2D overlays versus 3D overlays. Brian, which one are you going with?
I'm going to go with 2D overlays. I know, every marketing video we're going to see has
As
these
you just voted for BIM too, which interesting. Okay, I see.
Yeah, they can be great. They don't have to be together, but I think they're powerful nonetheless. This is a tough one for me, but I always do believe that a lot of people's minds still work in the process of 2D. I think being able to overlay a site plan and just get a rough idea of where things are moving. Most of the drawings are done in 2D, and a lot of those are the most accurate representation of reality with the most detail. Once we get to a place where we're starting to put in like a specific, rebar sizes into our BIM, then maybe we'll see how that goes in 3D, but I'm going to go with 2D.
All right. Jarvis, who you got?
2D overlays, just from an accessibility standpoint. Yeah.
Woo.
I mean, everybody's got PDF. It is a bear. I was on a project last week trying to get 3D information from the design team. Like they almost treat it like trade secret sometimes. Being able to get that release from them, you have to sign waiver after waiver that we're not going to build off of this. We're not going to use this for construction. Like, we're just looking at it for purely educational purposes. Like, even today, I mean, we're in 2025, just being able to get 3D information is still kind of a bear. So 2D overlays, 2D information is available readily. So yeah, and it's a very useful thing.
Rousing semifinal matchup up there. All right, moving down to the bottom of the bracket. Dashboards or reports? Which one of y'all feeling? I'll start with you, Jarvis.
I mean, I'm kind of having a hard time splitting this one. I mean, reports to me, being able to pull, just the slump test report, whatever it is, like it's a single point of data, but it's a lot easier to collect and distribute. Like I think of dashboards as like multi points of data. So being able to bring in, your building information model, being able to bring in your concrete specs, being able to bring in your manpower tracking, being able to bring in like getting all those things to play nicely. That's what I think of when I think dashboard, is just a single point for multi-data interaction. And that's going to be a hard one to set up and a hard one to maintain. So just from that, like being able to just say, we've got this manpower report, we've got this happening reports kind of in my mind.
All right, Brian, which one are you feeling?
Oof. I mean, it's very difficult because it's like, all right, are we only going to look at this one thing, or can I export a report from the dashboard? At the end of the day, I think reports have more of a timestamp, and that timestamp is usually a trigger event, whether it's a monthly meeting or an OAC meeting. So I'm going to go with reports.
All right. Jarvis, did you say reports?
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I maybe was like too into your mind there of what you were going. Fellas, you're making it easier on me on the data round, the data region here. All right. Last one here, material tracking, productivity tracking. Kind of talked about this a little bit ago, but Brian, which one are you feeling for better data and intelligence?
I'm going material tracking completely. I mean, yeah, because it's less about what is being tracked, but more how it gets weaponized or used. And I think the reality of the field is material is, staying on top of that is one of the most difficult things to stay on top of, making sure, teams and orders are all coming in place by the time they need them is a make or break 100% in your realm of your job. When it comes to productivity, if I'm looking at, great, yeah, my carpenter foreman is at 65% and, they're claiming to be 66, great. Like that's not the end of the world to me. I think people end up carrying costs, and we get into this whole progress tracking, like people want to know like such a specific percentage. To me, I think the reality of this sense is sometimes you work with your foremans of like, great, maybe they do carry a little more numbers just for a cash flow reason, but that's a whole nother conversation we could have. But you want to keep yourselves happy, you got to work with each other too at the end of the day.
All right, so
I'm gonna go with material tracking.
All right, Jarvis, what do you got?
I think I'm going to agree with Brian on this one. I do think like material tracking is kind of the simpler version of progress tracking, just because you can say, like Brian said, we've used 65% of our drywall, so we're probably 65% done. Productivity tracking, as it sits today, is a little more difficult. I mean, you look at kind of the waves of companies that have started up with holistic productivity of, we're going to take your model, we're going to take your materials, we're going to take your costs, we're going to take what's out there in the field and kind of try and mesh it all together as productivity. And material tracking is just an easy way to do kind of the same thing, in my opinion.
Man, fellas, I got no voice on this one. You guys went 4 for 4 on agreeing with each other. Maybe a couple I would have had a different response to, but yeah, I think material tracking, Brian, you bring up a really good point. I even think like material procurement, right? Like some really great tools that are popping up out there, Plot being one of them, of just helping the kind of procurement process, deliveries, things like that for materials. So yeah, I think you bring up a good point. I'm actually going to start at the bottom here and go to the semifinal round that we just talked about here with reports and material tracking, because I know this top one here on BIM and 2D overlays is going to be a hot one. So Brian, who do you got semifinal round, reports versus material tracking for your data and intelligence?
I mean, I guess in my mind, I find myself wanting to define exactly what type of report it is. But if I'm going to put like it's a monthly report, if I were to just say it's that, I'm going to go with monthly report. I think it's a lot more required by and owned by your team. I think material tracking is extremely important. I think you should know where it's coming out. But at the end of the day, too, it depends on if the material is furnished by, who it's furnished by, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to go with reports if I'm just going to have to shoot one.
All right, there it is. Jarvis, are we going to go 5 for 5? Are you guys agreeing with each other here?
I think we're going to go 5 for 5 on this one. Like I'm kind of split here too, but like to me, reports kind of bring in material tracking as well. So yeah.
I purposefully like kept these topics from you guys to really make sure that you were on different kind of wavelengths. And here we are, region 2 here, and you guys are following us through the end. All right. So last semifinal here, BIM and 2D overlays. Woo-wee. It's going to be an interesting one. Jarvis, we'll start with you. Which one's making it to the final?
I think BIM has, I mean, the ability to look in 3D is invaluable. Like I remember starting back at Rogers O'Brien, like their VDC team, me and Mark Daly were just sitting there for days and days on end going through the BIM model. Or sorry, I always have an ATM machine BIM model. Like, anyways, going through the model and just being like, why the heck is the design saying this 48-inch duct can fit in a 42-inch interstitial space? Like that's probably something we wouldn't have really caught and seen until we got to it. So I think BIM, lets us look further ahead as opposed to 2D overlays, which is something we're probably doing as we're, nearing that section of work. So I like kind of the future look that BIM gives us. So
all right, there we go. Brian, who you got? 6 for 6, or are we making a tie break?
This is tough because my question first begins: if I choose 2D overlays, does that mean that the model there was no coordination done up front?
We left this one to the end.
Do I get like really crappily made 2D overlays? You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, most of those overlays are created. A lot of the drawings now are just created from the model. They just
there you go. Use some experience here. I see where you're going. So what's your answer? Who's moving on?
I'm just gonna go from a scale. I'm gonna use my scalability on this one. I'm gonna go with 2D overlays.
Wow.
Because okay. I know.
I'm finally getting to come up. I'm off the bench. I'm the 6th man here.
Don't ask me to justify why, and I'm not just disagreeing to disagree with Jarvis, but I kind of am partially because yes,
I appreciate the call off the bench. Finally glad I can add some things in here. I got to go BIM. I think Jarvis, I agree with you. It's when you think of just the complexity that you can solve issues through, the data that comes from it. I do agree with you, Brian. Like it's gotta be correct for you to actually get stuff out of it, which is a whole other topic. But got to go with BIM here. I definitely think 2D overlays play a big part of it. But that's an interesting one to compare against. I don't know that I've ever thought about which one may have more merit than the other. But here we are into the finals, fellas. BIM and reports. Which one makes people stop guessing? Which one would you give insight, or which one would you miss the most if they disappeared tomorrow? Competitive advantage. So that's kind of, again, our filters here that we're walking through these. So Brian, which one's moving on to the final, which is the number 2 of our final 4?
Oof. I'm gonna go with.
You haven't voted for BIM either way, so I'm. Or no, I guess you did first round, but
yeah, I'm gonna go with BIM on this one.
Okay,
because
put just.
I truly do believe without BIM, those reports are not going to be great no matter what.
All right, now we're back. Now we're getting back into reality a little bit. All right, Jarvis, who you got? Who you sending to the final?
Agreed. BIM. I mean, to me, just if we lost it tomorrow, that'd be a tough deal. And then the competitive advantage, that criteria you have, like how many GCs are going in saying, check out these cool reports that we have. Are you going to give us the job? Like, no, everybody's like, we fully coordinated and done the model. I like it.
Yeah, well said. The number 1 seed in this bracket here for Region 2 Data Intelligence. Yeah, good, very interesting. This one was an interesting one. Hard to kind of pick between these two. Some old school ways, new school ways. But let's move over into Region 3 here, which is going to be people and process. Brian, I know you're definitely the chair of this region. I want to talk through some of these. But yeah, questions that we're going to tackle on this region. What makes the tech adoption stick? What kills or builds momentum, and which role is maybe kind of gives the team the most, gives the most adoption. So we're going to dive into Region 3 here. Fellas, halfway through. This is pretty fascinating. Let's move into Region 3 here. So the 8 topics, again, if you're just listening and not watching in, for people in process: in-house innovation versus consultants, superintendent kind of key driver or executive driver, custom workflows or off-the-shelf products, and then last but not least, the 2 7-8 seeds, project customization or company standards for the Region 3 of people in process. So Jarvis, I'm going to kick it to you. In-house innovation teams or consultants? The floor is yours.
Always a fan of in-house. personally. I mean, consultants will come and go. You could hire 5 different consultants and they'll tell you 5 different things. To me, in-house innovation is going to get that constant feedback with the project teams. They're going to live in the company. They've got their finger on the pulse of projects and people and what teams are doing well and what teams aren't and how project teams fit together. And, if Jarvis and Brian are on a project, how are they going to interact with each other? That consultants, a third party, I don't think has. So to me, in-house innovation.
Brian, who do you got?
I'm going to agree because the amount of skepticism in construction, especially for anyone that's outside of their company, of do they have their best interests, is very high and very sensitive. And so I'm going to go with in-house because whether they are the better person to do it is another conversation we could have. But I believe that they will be more effective in the long run.
I think, yeah, you don't have a voice here, but I'm going to add my 2 cents. The consultant part is interesting because I probably would have voted in-house, but I do think there's some interesting things of, we talk about like who executive teams listen to. I mean, any word from a consultant probably goes farther than their own teams, which is unfortunate, I think, in some ways. But consultants obviously get to see different companies and get to apply different kind of lessons learned across companies. So I agree. I would have voted in-house as well. But the consultant part is very interesting, especially with a ton of great, I think, resources and people out there that are going into the consultancy role. And I know and have actually seen some really great outcomes come from consultants. So in-house innovation moves on. Superintendent versus executive, fellas. Who do you want to be on your side more when it comes to promoting the work that you're doing? Brian, I'll start with you.
Oh, dang it.
Oof. All right, I'm going to just, for the sake of this, I'm going to go with executive.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Woo.
I hate to do it, but I've seen a lot of superintendents be very, very, very motivated and want something, but once it gets to a certain point, it's either, it falls out of the realm of like they're doing it because they're passionate about it. But if they don't have the support from their own company to either purchase it, whether their own product doesn't have a license for it, or they get restricted from, saying, hey, we don't do drones here. We're not allowed to fly drones. And like no one's allowed to fly. And if you do, putting policies in place that are almost detracting of innovation. I've seen more harm from, I'm gonna flip it. I see more harm from executives being against it than superintendents being against the.
Interesting.
Because I feel like I've seen more superintendents change their mind through being proven it works in the field, and than the reverse.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jarvis, I think you might have a different vote, but what do you got?
Well, you almost had me, Brian. You almost had me, dude. I mean, I was fully on the side of superintendents. My personal experiences, like I said, every success story I have is solving a problem for a superintendent and then having them adopt the technology. But I will say, to a point, you have to have executive buy-in. An engineering company I used to do some consulting work with, like they put a ban on drones and that was it. No superintendent can have drones. So I see your point on that. But barring total denial, I think a superintendent's your best friend for tech adoption. And even if the executives don't, like I said, barring total denial, superintendents will buy it on their card. They'll go put it on the project. They'll figure out, funky ways to get it on their job. Jan Honor over at Butts Construction, like perfect example in my mind. Company didn't buy him a drone. He went and bought a Mavic 2 Pro, flies it. It's now being adopted. He rents it back to the company. He's bought a Mavic 3. He's looking at buying an M4. Like he'll find a way to have whatever tech on his job. So that's why I'm going to lean superintendent, even though I do agree with you.
This is a tough one, fellas. Split down the middle. This one could be probably at the end of the bracket to maybe get to the later semis or finals here. But yeah, if I have to be the casting vote, man, this is tough because I think you guys both bring up really good arguments. I'm gonna go with Brian. I think the executive person to have as your advocate is huge, and I can hear Adam in the back of my mind here being like, "You betrayed me. You're not representing." I do think both of these are very important to have as a part of your kind of champions. But Brian, I think you bring up some good points to move executive kind of over into that semifinal round. So again, both very important. It's hard to even kind of have one go more than the other, but I think Brian, you bring up some really good points. So next one down here, custom workflows are off the shelf. Again, what makes the tech stick? Kills or builds momentum. That's kind of the filters we're talking through here. So Brian, Jarvis, I'll start with you on this one. Custom workflows off the shelf.
I do see the need for custom workflows, like being able to innovate and push new things. But I think an off the shelf solution that is you can duplicate across any project is a good way to have it. Not for standardization purposes, but something that is just an easy click, click, click. It's already built in the software, built in the hardware, whatever it is, makes it a lot more adoptable than, hey, we've got to come up with our own custom, way of doing this, and port in this API and bring this over here, figuring out. It just
Yep.
makes it a little harder to adopt, I think.
Brian, off the shelf or custom? What are you feeling?
I mean, a CIO I worked for a long time ago said, "We're in the business of building buildings, right?" And the second we start moving too far away from that, we gotta question what's going on. I think a lot of companies think software is a lot easier than it is. I mean, there's hardware companies that try to build software and fail for the hardware that they have, which is always interesting to me. I'm going to go with off the shelf because of the pure underestimation and then also the appetite for spending money that GCs have without seeing direct ROI numbers on what's being output.
All right, 2-0. No need to add anything here. Last one here in the quarterfinal round, project customization or company standards. I guess a little bit more of a kind of subset of the last one we just talked about. But Brian, I'll start with you. Which one are you picking to help build some momentum or make it actually stick?
Are you talking as far as a software or like implementing tech by project versus everyone at the company needs to do X, Y,
Yeah, so the
Z?
ones I kind of envision these ones is like, do you want to give the project levels of customization to kind of make it specific to maybe what they might be doing? Or do you think it's like, hey, at a company level, these are hard templates and hard kind of permissioning and things like that we're going to kind of stick to?
I'm going to go with project customization because unless you are holistically thinking of every project you have being worked on at the company by market sector, and then on top of that, having some sort of feedback loop to make sure you're keeping up when you decide to start doing data centers, for example, right? Whereas company standards, I feel, I would say giving some sort of like baskets of things. So for reality capture, here are the tools that you have available and letting people to choose. So it's kind of a hybrid of both, but I'm going to go with customization on this one.
All right, Jarvis, who do you got?
Yeah, you got me, Brian. I was kind of in that standardization a bit just because it makes adoption a lot easier. But like I do remember, so two companies, DPR and Roger Bryan, very standardized in the sense of, they roll out stuff across the company very quickly. DPR was just kind of, you want to use Ignite, you want to use ShareFile, whatever you want to do, it's up to you. Like it was easier for me to kind of say, I want to try something new on this job, but it was harder to push it across the company. But I do think for project specific stuff and trying to get the project completed, because we're in the industry of building buildings, like being able to pick and choose your tools is an important deal. And I wouldn't want to deny people.
All right, project customization. Moving on to the semis, fellas. We got a pretty interesting semi matchup: in-house innovation versus executive kind of sponsor, and off-the-shelf versus project customization. All right, Brian, I'll start with you. Semifinals: in-house innovation teams or executive sponsor. Which one helps it stick?
I'm going to go with executive sponsor.
Ooh, okay.
And the reason being is I've seen a lot of smaller mid-market companies where someone higher up at the company has wanted to create some sort of innovation, but didn't necessarily have a background in innovation per se. Like let's say directors of pre-construction owning the reality capture division, or some sort of CIO saying, "Hey, we want to start implementing, this new piece of thing." Like you can always get assistance from the company that are implementing it, that own the company, like your CSM, stuff like that. But I think even without executive, you still need someone signing the check. You need someone in the company that's going to be pushing that at a much more top-down approach.
Cool. All right. I don't disagree with you there, but Jarvis, what's your vote?
I think there's a reason why almost every single construction company has some sort of VDC or innovation or tech group. Even to the point, Todd Wynn, first CIO in GC history, and now how many GCs out there have a chief innovation officer? Like in-house innovation, I think is the driver for this. VDC, kind of the advent of the VDC department led us from paper drawings to digital docs and stuff. That to me is when this whole kind of Contech innovation stuff started. So I'm going to roll with in-house innovation team.
Wow. Okay. I got to be the decider vote. Very, very good arguments both ways. I struggle with this one. These semifinal matchups are so tough. I think you guys both bring up really good points. I think, Jarvis, I'm going to take yours a little bit of like the Todd's at the chief innovation officer level as like the executive, as maybe the tipping point, just how important they are of just that sponsor. I think I go back to even the first round when we were talking about how they can really throw fuel on the fire, or they can really snuff out the fire if not kind of brought into this whole kind of idea. So I'm going to move executive on. I don't know if they'll make it through, but that's a tough tiebreaker to do here. So the other semifinal is off-the-shelf tool or project customization abilities for people process. Brian, who do you got to send in the finals?
Oh, actually, on that last point, one big issue I always see is when VDC doesn't have a seat at the big boys table or big girls table, like whatever they are. That's where I always see an issue. It's because they're always like speaking through some sort of executive that's representing them that is not their top of mind.
Yeah.
So until they have some sort of executive level representation, I always see them get blocked. But moving on,
this bracket has a little bit more detail to add, which
no, I'm saying with the executive, I mean, look, every successful person we know that has the authority to influence their executive team. A lot of people I know are the ones that get kind of brushed aside whenever a larger executive team cares about it at that point.
Yep, good point. All right, off the shelf project customization. Who's moving on to the final?
I'm going to go with off the shelf. A lot of the, I mean, this is a tough thing to compare, I guess, but I'm going to go with off the shelf because most of the time it has a lot of thoughtful consideration, lessons learned, things baked into it. Project customization might be going off either being swayed by who you may be talking to, what you may found online, things like that may be biased.
All right, Jarvis, who you got? Who's going to the finals?
I'm going the same, off the shelf. I think the easier, tech, whether it's hardware, software, is to adopt, the more problems, and it's solving a specific problem, the more adoptable it is, and the more impact it can have on the project and on the company.
Yeah, good point. I just think of the second question we asked as a filter here of like what kills or builds momentum. Off the shelf, like definitely can build some big momentum and like getting projects off and running to the start. So final round here, Region 3. We're getting close to the finish line here. Executive or off the shelf tool? Executive sponsors. Maybe the way to kind of clarify that, or off the shelf tool. Which one for a people/process for this Region 3? Brian, who's moving on? The final four.
This is a tough thing to compare as well, but I'm going to use my my competitive advantage question card. If that's how that makes sense.
Didn't have that on my bingo card either. So let's. Where did that come from?
I'm going to say if things get mandated from the ownership or from the outside, but even if an executive is resistant, they will. They kind of have to do something, even if they're like, no, we don't do those. We don't do 360 photos here. We don't do drones, but it's owner mandated, then I believe it'll make its way through. But this is a very tough one too, because I think executives will be swayed if they are getting something pushed down on them too.
So your vote, executives moving on to the final?
Off the shelf onto the final.
What? Did I totally heard definitely didn't.
I'll save it because even though I voted against executive every step of the way, congratulations, Adam. I'm a bottom up innovation guy in your memory. But I think to your guys' point, like if an executive is going to block the use of 360 cameras or anything within the company, that's going to stop the momentum of innovation and stop the momentum of adoption. So, even though I hate to do it, like between these two, off the shelf, an app, a hardware or software could be really cool, have easy stuff, solve something. If you have an executive that just comes down and throws down and says, nope, we're not doing anything like that, then it's kind of dead in the water. So
guys, I feel like that's the buzzer beater of the finals. Like straight up half court Chris Jenkins, like tossing it up. You guys just like threw up that one, and executive was like rolling. But off the shelf, you're saying that, hey, that's like a very key critical part in the people process side of it. Yes,
I'm saying executive. You're the tiebreaker.
This is up to you, Grant.
Oh, yeah, this is up to you.
Yeah, man, Brian, you literally put me on my back on the crossover there at the end. I think you guys just bring up really, really like interesting viewpoints that are both incredibly valid. I mean, God, man, this is a tough one. This is probably the hardest one to get to the final here. I just think to the executive, it's so interesting, like how important it is to make sure that they are either aware or know what it is that's going on. And the off the shelf stuff, obviously, you can't have any of that value if it's not, easily and accessible to use. But I kind of go executive here. I don't. This is. I know Adam is just dying in his probably ears just hearing some of this, but yeah, I don't know. As we kind of talk through it more, just the importance of how they can really, again, fuel it or put it out the fire. I'm going to move executive onto the back end. I don't know. We'll see in the final four if that's how it lands. But hey, guys, don't let me be the tiebreaker in the semis or final rounds. This is too tough to move in. All right, let's move to the last region. We are turning the corner here. ROI and business impact as the last region here. If the CFO is listening, which of these tools do you pitch first? What tech would survive a budget cut? What actually helps you win more work? This is going to be interesting. ROI and business impact is our final region, and then we're going to look at our final four as we go through here. Last one, I'm going to read off these 8 in the quarterfinal. Productivity versus risk reduction. Financial control versus schedule control. That one's going to be fascinating. Tech that saves projects, and then tech that wins projects. Precon or closeout for ROI and business impact. So, fellas, this is our last bracket. Kind of sad. I'm very interested to see the final four and how they kind of all group together and if we would kind of agree and land on that. But Jarvis, start us off. ROI and business impact between productivity and risk reduction. Which one are you feeling?
I don't know. This region's a hard one for me. I see the value in both. I would say, we are in the business of building buildings, just to parrot Brian again, who parroted somebody else. But productivity to me, I think if we're not getting the building built, on time and on schedule, then and under budget or on budget, I guess, then we're kind of setting ourselves up from a risk reduction standpoint. The things that I think of as like safety aspects, which is a huge important thing. I'm not saying people should be unsafe, but I think productivity is it for me at the moment.
All right, Brian, who do you got?
I'm going to go with productivity. I mean, most of the risks happen when you're not keeping aware of what's going on in your site. I think you have your table stakes things of like, great, how are we going to actually get this piece of equipment in here, et cetera. But I'm going to say when you don't have an idea of what's going on is where the issues happen and people try to move faster or they try to cut corners.
All right. Second spot here, financial control versus schedule control. Again, just the questions. CFO's listing, which ones are you going to pitch more, and what tech would survive the budget cut? So financial control, schedule control. Brian, who are you picking?
This is brutal. I don't even know.
I told you these brackets get harder. I'm glad this is the last one because these are hard.
Children, like these are your two pillars, right? I'm gonna go with. I gotta just choose one, right? I'm going to go with financial control because historically schedules are always an interesting representation of reality, but I figured finances are always, dollars and cents. It's very there. Schedules tend to be some estimates of when things are going to happen. You have unforeseen circumstances, et cetera. So I think what you can control 100% would be financials.
All right, Jarvis.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Brian. Like we've got this limited bucket that we can draw out of for financial control, a little bit of flexibility with the schedule. We can resequence, we can change things, we can adjust some critical path things, reshuffle the deck as it were. So I kind of lean to financial control, but the builder in me wants to roll over to schedule control because it plays into a lot of stuff. The more accelerated we get, the more dangerous people act, and I don't know, the more constrained our jobs get with staying late and being out. Like, so I'm kind of gonna do a whole 180 here and just go schedule control now that I'm talking about it out loud. So break us away, Grant.
Dude, it depends on your role, right? Like it really, if I'm a super PM, they're two different things. But yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I think
the other, even to that though, like how many times I've seen the PMs on jobs like fiddling with the schedule, trying to make the schedule work, as opposed to the financial buckets there. Yeah, we've got to calm down, the workforce, but how many times they're messing with the schedule as opposed to the financial pieces. That's
I'm
kind of my thought.
gonna split the tie break and say financial. I mean, if the first question was like, what are you pitching to the CFO? They're probably more interested in the dollar
That's
side of
actually,
it. But
yeah.
I agree with both of y'all. This is a tough, again, 8-9 matchup of like kind of do a coin toss and see which one's going to go. But I'm going to go financial side is always helpful in the ROI and business impact. All right, Jarvis, tech that saves projects, like save it out of a hole, or tech that wins projects? Which one are you focusing on that actually helps?
I mean, it's a little bit one and the same in the sense that the tech that saves is a lot of the tech that wins. Like I think of drones, 360 cameras, reality capture, those win jobs. They also save jobs. But to me, I kind of go back to that old thing. If you set it up right, like it's gonna be a success. Like if you set up your estimates right, set up your team right, it's gonna be a good project through, and you'll have a good closeout. And then rolling back to the question, which one are you going to pitch to the CFO? Obviously, would love to have a good backlog. Would love to have some more projects under our belt. So I'd have to go the tech that wins, I guess.
All right, Brian, who you going with?
I'm gonna go with tech that saves. I actually know a company recently that is just it came from a much larger company, and then they're really good at winning work. But the reality of the scenario is, if the projects do not do well, especially if you're a newer company, or under 50 years old, under 100 years, whatever you define as new, your reputation really does matter. And until you get to this national level, you really get judged by every project in your portfolio, and there's only 70% of your work's repeat work, right? So how you end the projects, how you're going to get the next one.
I'm actually going to swap my vote.
What?
I agree
was
with
gonna
you,
give
Brian. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Tech
I'm
that
tired of being on the
saves.
losing side. Grant picks Brian. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean,
But that point that you made, Brian, of like, yeah, we can set it up to win the job. It's not necessarily setting it up for success on the job. So that little nomenclature,
End up
the tech
throwing like
that
a
wins,
24-year-old, like a 24-year-old person in charge, and then they like screw it up. Like it, you know what I'm saying? Like it's
yeah,
yeah,
this is a
cool
tough one.
visualizations and stuff for the RFP. Like that won me over. Yeah. So we could have a really cool RFP and have some really cool innovation slides and 4D sequencing and stuff like that. But then we hand it over to a project team that's not equipped to execute it. They need to be saved. So I'm with you,
Wow.
Brian.
All right, another 180. Don't have an analogy for that one, sport analogy there. But all right, I think you guys are kind of answering this next one here, the last quarterfinal matchup. Precon or closeout? Which one are you putting more investment into? Brian?
I'm gonna go with precon. I think I really do
after that
believe.
whole round of no, it doesn't matter if you win the job. I get it. It's all right. I set this up that way, but
No, I'm gonna go with precon. I mean, I'm thinking purely from, I guess, like, depends what style of precon. Are we talking like design build, like whatever we're talking about? I'm gonna just go with precon holistically. You always hear people always say that the last 10% of the job is always the hardest, and you also hear people say, yeah, they all finish somehow, right? And I think a lot of that does come from the fact that it's like, great, we have people starting projects with incomplete drawings, without defined roles or execution of how we're going to go about this thing. I think a lot of the planning can only happen retroactively. It cannot happen once the event has happened, right? And the more planning, the more prepared you can be for whatever's out there.
all right. Jarvis, who you got? Precon or closeout?
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, this kind of goes back to the previous bracket, but winning a job, you might have a terrible estimate, you might have bare bones numbers, but if you've got a good pre-con team that not only is establishing your budget, but looking at project teams and saying, hey, Brian's a phenomenal superintendent. His personality really works well with Jarvis as a PE. And then Grant is a phenomenal PM, but his personality doesn't really jive with him. I look at pre-con in that kind of holistic sense. So they're setting up the job, not just from the money standpoint, they're setting it up for, within the GCs, what tech are we going to be able to afford? What project team we're going to have? What trailer are we going to have? Which that's a cool topic, that Mortensen mobile trailers and stuff. We'll have to chat about another time, but that's kind of all in pre-con. Like, how are we setting up our project to have success throughout? And like Brian said, every job is going to get finished one way or another. So if you can make it comfortable throughout in the planning phase, that's good.
I like the easy rounds, fellas. You're keeping me on the bench. All right, semifinal rounds. We're closing this out. Productivity or financial control? Which one's got the bigger ROI business impact? Jarvis, I'll start with you.
Um, rolling back to the qualifiers, CFO, all that stuff. If a job's just running rampant with spending money, then that's probably a bad thing. The productivity is more the logistics side of it. Of what percentage complete are we? So just in that kind of bucket of rules, I'm going to have to roll over to financial control.
Brian.
I'm on the same with financial. I think that's 100% in your wheelhouse of where the money's being spent. Productivity, I think tracking comes from, I don't want to say an insecurity, but from a need to want to know everything that's going on that site. But at the end of the day, someone owns the schedule. They own what their trade has to have done by a certain date. So they're held liable and responsible for that through the finances. If you pay them out 100% when they're only 60%, that's another issue. So
okay. Interesting. Financial. You guys are, again, keep me on the bench. All right, other semifinal, moving on to the final. Tech that saves or precon as the ROI and business impact? Brian, we'll start with you.
Oof. I'm going to go with precon on this one. And that is mostly because it's easier to not screw something up than to unscrew something up, right? It's like a ball of yarn, right? So I'm gonna go. I'm working on my analogies.
Nice. Yeah, that was close. I wouldn't say the best, but it works. Jarvis, who do you got? Tech that saves or precon? Which one are you doubling down on?
I think precon. Thinking back to my college days, the ASC competition, like all of that stuff was kind of precon. How are you going to attack this project? And if you set it up right, like it made it easy. I remember Mortensen was the sponsor of the problem that I was in, and like they had this kind of gotcha moment of, we've got this plan for this really cool but hard to build swimming pool in a I can't remember what the building was, but anyways, the fact that we could catch it in precon, make a plan around it, and not screw it up like in the moment and not have to be saved, I think is a huge deal, because that particular project, like you'd be in deep water and not be able to kind of save it at all, really.
All right, we made it to the final. I think I only had one tiebreaker this round, so you guys are a little bit more kind to me here. But last one, the final round, ROI and business impact, financial control or precon, which survives the budget cut, which gets the CFO's ears perked a little bit, which one actually kind of helps you win more jobs, which, it's going to be interesting. Brian, we'll start with you.
I'm going to go with precon on this one. I think oh, man, actually, I don't know.
Yeah, this one's tough. While you're thinking, Jarvis, you influence Brian's decision and give us your thoughts.
I mean, precon sets the bucket. Precon sets how much money there is in the financial control in the project. So, when they go in with the bid, establish here's how much money we have to complete the project. Here's how we're going to, sequence it. Here's how we're going to set the schedule. Like that sets the tone for the project in perpetuity. Financial control is kind of an after the fact. So we've got the bucket set by precon. Which one's more valuable is the bucket maker as opposed to, the bucket monitor in my mind.
All right, Brian, not to influence you, but what do you feel? We just talked about this in the quarterfinal round. You guys were like, oh no, tech that saves, definitely the winner over tech that wins. Kind of a precon vibe, but here we are in the final, and the literal term of precon is...
A big part of me kind of wants to go with financial control, and I'm just going to lock that in.
Wow.
Not just to disagree, and not just because I want Grant and the to make the decision.
In the final.
But I've seen projects with very to little to very no precon that had good financial control, and then I've also seen projects with great precon, and the project team that takes it over screws it up completely too. So, Grant, I need you on this one.
Oh man, you guys. I think, what is this, my third deciding vote in the finals of the 4 regions? Yeah, this one's really tough. I mean, it's like set up well or continue well, I think is what comes to mind with these two tools. And yeah, I think about, financial control is pretty interesting because, yeah, you want to have kind of that sustained drumbeat, full gas tank throughout the whole job, kind of has a, your tank meter that you can kind of keep track of when you need to fill and when you need to kind of audit some stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think you both said it well. Precon's a pretty important, part of it, that you set up the job well. You may not, you may have some gotchas kind of throughout. I just think any tool that helps in this idea of financial control is just super important because it's giving you insights, not only probably in the precon phase, but also maybe throughout the job. That is also important. Again, hard to negate the value of what, precon tech and that can kind of do to help set a job up. But I got to put my vote on financial control, especially as things that you're evaluating tools and does it kind of give you this aspect, I think is super important. So I'm going to move financial control over into the kind of business impact and ROI. And fellas, this is tough. I am kind of surprised by our answers a little bit. I'm also putting in here our final four bracket as we speak, because I got to update this live here. What do you guys think? Was this a decent exercise, or what was kind of your takeaways from tablets to BIM to executive kind of sponsor to financial control? What's your takeaways here as we kind of wrap and move this one out?
This was just mentally exhausting. Was probably
You didn't like my bracket activity to really break us down here?
Yeah, seriously, I don't even know. Woo. That felt like a GMAT. That felt like the GMAT exam for Contech or something, but that was tough.
So, all right, let's move into this kind of final round. We'll land the plane here as Brian's ready to just like kind of call it in here. This is pretty fascinating, right? Of like, how do you really kind of dive in here to some of these topics of, all right, so these were the final four. These were the things that kind of won each of their regions. Because I was thinking about this, like the final four, you really can't compete these against each other. They're kind of all their own individual categories and regions. But yeah, what's your guys' kind of take seeing all four of these as, all right, maybe these are cornerstones of things for the listeners and things to kind of think through that obviously rise up between, we had 32 topics, 8 topics per region, boiling down to 4 topics that I think are really important. Brian, I'll give you kind of the final curtain call as you think about these.
Yeah, I think the left side and right side both tell a congruent story, right? So you see tablets and BIM saying that, okay, great, we almost need to choose 2 of the extremes on that side. So we need something extremely simple, but then also something that's a lot more in depth. And then the in between, like the tools in there are great, like on a spectrum wise, but having kind of like this, I need both. Wow, this is a terrible analogy. Both a knife and a shotgun, right? And like, great, like some of the weapons in between, great are useful. But if I have those in my arsenal, you kind of got your main carry and your side carry. And then on the right side, you have your executive and financial control. And I think those go hand in hand. I think at the end of the day, you're a business. If you do not make money, you do not care where the dollars are going, then a lot of those executives probably won't be there to make any of those decisions. So
I've never heard a shotgun and did you say spoon? Was that your other one?
Shotgun and a knife. Pocket
knife.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I spent a lot of time.
Would you like your spoon?
Yeah. I spent a lot of time with my younger brother, and I was like, oh yeah, so what's your like typical carry on like a mission or whatever? But yeah, he was like, yeah, you kind of need like a good versatility of
there it is. Jarvis, what are your takeaways? I mean, if you have these 4 things, I mean, obviously I think you're doing pretty well on your ideal project, but yeah, I mean, what's your kind of takeaway seeing these kind of 32 things boil down to 4?
Yeah, it's funny just to see kind of some of the flip-flops that we had. So like 2D versus 3D overlays, we picked 2D, and then the very next round, BIM beat out 2D overlays. So kind of a little flip-flop there. I look at the left side of this, tablets and BIM, as things that I definitely need on a project, and a little bit on the right side, like hurdles that I had on projects personally. Like an executive could just come down and say, no drones, no tablets, no BIM, no nothing. So a hurdle, somebody that we need to get on our side, but a hurdle nonetheless if they decide to go against it. And then financial controls, I was on a project last week and they were talking about, man, we'd love to get the surveyors out here to set GCPs. We don't have it in our budget. That's kind of a hurdle to me. Like you've got a limited bucket that you need to monitor and draw from. So yeah, I kind of look at the left side as tools. The right side is potential hurdles, potential allies to you. I mean, if you got enough money, you can buy some fun stuff. If you got executive sponsorship, they could really push innovation, or they could be a huge hindrance. So yeah.
Wow. Well summarized. I think from both of y'all, I appreciated being the kind of deciding vote. Maybe not mentally as tired as you, Brian, of talking through all this, but it is very fascinating. I mean, 32 topics that we kind of whittled down to 4, and yeah, it's interesting. There's a blend of field and there's a blend of office, right? There's a blend of easy tech and a little bit of blend of hard tech. And I think that what this maybe shows me is just this reality that there's no one size fits all. There's no one approach that will win. You do have to have, it's like a good recipe. You got to have a good mix of a lot of things, or just a mix of a few really good things. Call it these 4 things. And, you definitely find success kind of throughout that. So yeah, fun exercise. Definitely not what I was anticipating of just the kind of hard, comparisons of one to another. But at the end of the day, I hope this stirs a lot of conversation to the comments and some of the emails and feedback that we get. Because March Madness, this was a madness of an exercise to kind of pull into. But yeah, just appreciate you guys rocking through it. I'm Brian. I'm looking at you to get your card signed here of your player card. And Jarvis, I don't know. I think if you do shave off your beard or your goatee there, this will feel a little bit more like your card that will be here. So any last thoughts, Brian?
No, I just need to work on my analogies is really all I'm thinking about. But yeah, I'll come prepared next week.
I did see Ted Lasso is coming back. So now I'll have a chance to watch and get more of his analogies. So yeah, you're definitely behind in pace here. But Jarvis, kind of inside joke, but you'll get back to it. It's basically don't watch Ted Lasso. Haven't watched Ted Lasso, not out of desire, but
I'm familiar with that, and I think it's just an atrocity that you have not watched Ted Lasso, and you are who you are with your Grant-isms and his Lasso-isms.
And with that, fellas, it's been a good episode. Hope we had some folks that stuck around to the end to get to kind of the final 4 that we had and kind of the ideal job site. But appreciate y'all tuning in with us. We have the next few weeks are going to be awesome. We got some really fun featured guests that are going to come in here. Really hope to kind of diversify the panel and diversify some of the backgrounds and kind of thoughts of some. So if you're sticking around, you enjoy these conversations, I look forward to future episodes coming down the pipe with some really great featured guests. So appreciate you guys. That was a good mental exercise to end our week here, and look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Brian, take care. Jarvis, we'll see you soon, buddy.